we have several speakers today. And also, I would suggest maybe to have at least several questions being answered after each presentation, but please keep them specific and short, just to save our time. If that's okay with you, I would like to invite Stefan to start our today's workshop by introducing us an overview of the strategy for social entrepreneurship in Macedonia that our team is working together with a large working group of different stakeholders under the guidance of the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy. Please, Stefan.
Thank you, Mindaugas. Благодарам, Mindaugas. I will на македонски да се ќе се префрлам.
Now I'm going to shift into Macedonian. Thank you very much, Mindaugas. So hello everyone. On my behalf, my name is Stefan Chichevaliev. Today, in the role of one of the Eptisa experts, I am an executive director of the Social Enterprise Observatory, Social Entrepreneurship Observatory, and I will speak about the introduction to the strategy on social entrepreneurship, how the process went, which is what is contained in the strategy, all the way until its finalization. I will start off with the introduction, which is the objective of the strategy and the time frame, the objectives and the 4 strategic priorities. So this strategy defines the basic goals, objectives, and activities for the years 21 until 2027, which is slightly different from the version already shared. As you can see, we're extending the deadline of the strategy. The objective is to develop legal, financial, institutional framework for development of social enterprises in the country. The specific objective of the strategy is to develop a sustainable ecosystem which will be enabling and fostering social entrepreneurship in the country. Of course, this objective encompasses measures and activities grouped into 4 strategic priorities, which are creating a culture of social entrepreneurship, capacity development, development of markets, and lastly, building the financial ecosystem, which will aid the growth of social enterprises. We will dwell in more depth about these 4 strategic priorities later on. I will not start out with them immediately. Now, how was the first national strategy on social entrepreneurship created? The public organization years ago initiated this entire process when they conducted the research on social enterprises and the ecosystems in which these enterprises function, which then provided some data about the national political context, international political context, and the opportunities to learn from the good practices of the EU member states, using thereby the research, policy paper studies related to the ecosystem, supported by the European Commission concerning the conditions in the country. And the second part was a broader consultative process, which involved the stakeholders, members and representatives of social enterprises, the civil society sector, public institutions, and of course, educational institutions. And this consultative process consisted of different working groups. Of course, there were experts which led the entire process. And actually, from this process, we have these 4 strategic priorities as end results that I mentioned briefly in the previous slide. Certainly, at that point, the pandemic emerged and the development of this entire process was halted. When things loosened up a little bit, then the project supported by the EU resumed. The project led by Eptisa, support to social enterprises in consortium with Barka and Ecorys. And this process slowly started to motivate politicians, decision makers, to give life to this strategy. And then came the need for additional brief consultative processes. And all of this resulted into a training that we had to conduct, a 2-hour brief training for all stakeholders, which actually were members of the working group. And I have to mention that the work group was constituted by decision, written decision of the Minister of Labor and Social Policy, which in addition to the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy included representatives from the Ministry of Economy, Finance, Justice, the Agency for Promoting Entrepreneurship, the Agency for Innovations, the Central Registry, Public Revenue Office, civil society organizations, the business sector, etc. The purpose of the training was that all of us are on the same page so that we can all work jointly for development of social entrepreneurship, following which four subgroups were organized, focusing primarily on different elements of the strategy, giving their elements, suggestions, input, conclusions as to how this strategy should move onward with certain enriched data, input, information in order to make the strategy as comprehensive and improved as possible. Certainly, as I said before, the strategy explains the national and political context. As you all know, in the past 10 years, SE has experienced its rebirth, has become a very interesting topic, attracting different sectors: education sector, business sector, civil society organizations, decision makers, policy creators were very much interested in social entrepreneurship, SE. In the past 10 years, with the emerging of this field and the increased interest from the different sectors, along came the interest of the European community with the first project fostering social enterprises that was also led by Eptisa, and also Barbara was the key expert in this project that happened as first in line of the projects on social entrepreneurship. So at the end of that first project, we ended up with a draft law on social entrepreneurship, which the civil society organizations and the social enterprises and the different stakeholders thought was inappropriate, and because at that point it was going to be limiting the development of the entrepreneurship. But in the meantime, different organizations worked on different projects, research activities, the capacity development, which contributed to strengthening the theory and practice about the development of this sector. That helped the situation a great deal. After that came the second project, but this is a very ambitious project that envisages, along with the government program that stipulates adoption of strategy and action plan for developing social enterprises and entrepreneurship, followed by a law on social entrepreneurship. So this is a very complex project, and this project will literally help the establishment of this political and strategic framework and the legislative framework for the full development of SE. From this perspective, because now we are explaining the strategic and the legal approach, the strategic approach pertains to the strategy and action plan and harmonizing the other relevant strategies and compared to the other existing modern strategies in the country, which are cross-cutting, let's say. With regards to the legal approach, I already said that we are going to work on the full design and adoption of a proper law on social entrepreneurship. It's good. You should know that this process will start in September, October, let's say. We'll start with the designing of the law, followed by consultation processes. We want to round off this entire cycle of legislative drafting as it is right, as it should be done. And at the end, we give a description of the social enterprises in the country. We are aware that social enterprises emerge as different legal entities which carry out different economic activities in order to ensure funding for their programs, thus addressing and targeting different social challenges and societal challenges. So in this context, social enterprises are offering different social, economic, health, educational, cultural, environmental projects which have a social value, which serve to address the challenges of modern life and to promote further social well-being. When we speak of social value, we refer here to products and services which ensure direct benefit for the community or for a specific group of citizens and for the general public. And they can be found throughout the business spectrum as non-profit organizations or different hybrid form of enterprises which have their profit and non-profit part, or limited liability company, artisan associations, and sole proprietor enterprises. We don't have enough time to speak about all the forms and subforms in which they emerge. For the time being, this would be enough, and I would stop at this point now. I will not move on to the international political context, where we dwell more on the social strategies and development of social entrepreneurship in Europe. And to us as a country, there are several strategies which are really important for the development of social entrepreneurship, such as Europe 2020, or the strategy for development of Southeast Europe 2020, the sustainable development goal of the UN, and these are all just mentioned briefly in order not to burden the strategy, because after all, focus is on the development of SE at the national level. If you have any further questions at this point, I would be happy to take them. Now, regarding the ecosystem, where the social enterprises are taking up different activities, you see the key stakeholders here for an enabling ecosystem for social enterprises. I give credit now to Gerhard, who allowed me to use part of his slides, because this is an excellent depiction of the organizations which are involved in the ecosystem here. Because these organizations that support the value of the ecosystem and enabling culture. So we speak of the principles of solidarity, sustainability, which aid the development of SE and democratic decision-making as one of the key criteria for social enterprises. Then we have the consumers, customers or clients. We speak of the public and private market and the general public, purchasing habits. Then we have organizations which offer services for developing the capacity, building capacity, support services for startup, depending on the level of the enterprise, startup or further business development of the enterprise, so in each stage. Then we have the funding partners.
Sorry, Stefan, I only would like to, I interrupt you. This capacity building element refers directly to centers to support of social enterprises, but also other institutions supporting small startups, etc. But in this case, it is connected with your activity. Okay.
Indeed. At the next slide, Barbara, I will explain the ecosystem in a bit more detail here, speak only about the stakeholders. So the next slide, I'm going to explain where is the connection of this entire thing. But of course, you're absolutely right. When we speak about developing, building the capacities, we're not only refer to social enterprises, but we speak of all the national institutions at the national and local level. And of course, we speak of the private sector, the general public, literally everyone, so as to have full development of SE in every sector. Further on, we have the donors, funding partners, and all the organizations which offer funding, support, provide finance for developing of enterprises, social enterprises, firstly for development of SE, then for the enterprises, and support organizations that offer networking opportunities for joint learning, cooperation. And lastly, of course, we have the organizations which are again very important and help boost, promote the visibility of the social enterprises in the country. Moving on to the next slide, where this is the ecosystem that I just explained now. But the first strategic component is developing the SE culture. What does this mean? Of course, first of all, it implies education, entrepreneurial education. In our country, this is very important for developing SE, but still in our country, we still do not have any formal education programs focused directly on SE. In high schools, SE is taught as a topic in the course called Business and Entrepreneurship, and at the universities, it is an elective course that is offered at only part of the universities, not all. Then comes the political recognition, which starts with the involvement of social enterprises in modern political documents, strategies, action plans, policy papers, which are connected to social entrepreneurship of any sort. Then, of course, development of a specific SE development strategy and action plan, which we are doing right now, but also of the other cross-cutting strategies, which we will refer to later on. Strategy for deinstitutionalization of Timianic, strategy for rural development, strategy for tourism, for small and medium enterprises, just to name a few. Part of them are presently being drafted, such as the strategy on volunteerism or on cooperation with the civil society organizations and the government. Further on, we have the legal recognition, which, as I said, because at the end of the day, we are yet to see which changes will be accepted by the ministry. But of course, there will be a separate strategic priority that will be focused on enabling legal environment for development of SE in the country, which will focus on the multi-sectoral approach, because social entrepreneurship is a horizontal topic which cannot only focus on one and only sector. Same thing as the need to harmonize all the strategies and including the social enterprises in all of them. Likewise, in legislation. So in addition to adopting a new law on social entrepreneurship that is going to be focused on SE, we need to harmonize also the other relevant law in order to enable different benefits for the social enterprises, for investment, for taxes, and so on.
Something that we shouldn't forget is other centers, which, of course, contribute as a mechanism, both in the networking, in the collaboration. It's very important also the research. We still have a limited number of researchers in the country, but enough to describe the situation, but we lack statistics in order to further develop this kind of data. This requires an approach which should be bottom up, done by researchers and research institutions that will do researches and provide information, but also from up downwards, like from the State Statistical Office, for example, the establishment of satellite accounts of data. We are also referring to how to measure the social impacts. This is social short part where we can use later on for measuring something like this. Another strategic priority is capacity building. This definitely refers to trainings, mentoring, incubators, and acceleration programs that at the moment they aren't that present, but we do have some. And then here we refer to the existing capacity building programs coming from different stakeholders in the community of social entrepreneurship. Some of them operate based on projects and others are programs. There's that programs are part of the organization and are actively implemented, and for some of the organizations are economic activity, and they also contribute significantly towards building the capacities for all actors in the communities. Here we also have the networks to make sure that we'll have sustainable development of social entrepreneurship. You know, we have a network of social enterprises. The third strategic priority is the market development. And as I said, here we talk about public and private markets, about responsible purchasing and the purchasing habits of the citizens. Here we refer to the possibility for public procurement, but as you already know, in the law on public procurement, we have a clause, an article about reserved contracts, which is still not operational, even though it has been available for a year or two, and it's not operational because the social enterprises are still not legally recognized by the institutions, and as a result, this measure hasn't been applied yet. We have a relatively new law on social protection, which with the decentralization and the institutionalization offers opportunity to social enterprises and other organizations all offering social services in partnership with the municipalities to apply for funds for introducing this kind of social services in the municipalities. So at the local level, services like personal assistance, help and assistance in the home. Here we have people who can explain in more details from practice. And another very important element is building strategic partnership with the business sector, because the small and medium enterprises play a very important role in the social development. They promote the entrepreneurship culture that I have already pointed out as a very important tool, very important area. They offer services and products and create jobs, and they develop channels. that the social enterprises can later use. Of course, the development of this strategic partnership with the business sector promotes improves the approach to the market and improves their effectiveness and efficiency. In this regard, this section is not that developed in our country, and we'll have to do a lot of work there. The fourth strategic priority is accessing finances. So accessing finances is seen from the aspect of the partners, donors, and different funding schemes. But we also have to have in mind that the public policies should help. And of course, we have to work on building responsible consumption society where the citizens would focus on buying from enterprises that help the society, their community, regardless of the level. The development should also be in our focus about the financial ecosystem. You know that we talk about the demand and offer and demand, and here we need to experiment and pilot new financial mechanisms that could provide, that could bring yield, fruit for the social enterprises, and to promote new initiatives in regard to the social entrepreneurship that have the potential of developing into social enterprises. At the moment, we do not have too many financial products that could help the social enterprises, as I mentioned, for numerous reasons at the moment. But hopefully, with this strategy and action plan, and later on with the work of on the legislative and administrative framework, there will be that we will be dealing with the challenges of the social enterprises and will be increasing their potentials. The public policy should be involved in this section, and public sector at the moment is not targeting the public enterprises at the moment, but it should happen in the future. And including the social enterprises in different strategies, and some of the instruments that could be developed for the development of the sector incorporate piloting new financial models, such as the loans, microcrediting, and schemes that will simplify the approach to accessible funding for development of ideas for social entrepreneurs. When we talk about increasing or scaling social enterprises, then we would talk about those elements that are called safety nets, namely models that offer certain kind of support for the investors and promoting investment in social enterprises and social entrepreneurship, and of course enabling legislation for the investors that would like to invest in this field. These are just, I'm not showing all, I'm just pointing out some of the measures that could be implemented for the development of the sector and of the enterprises that would like to go further. So now I will touch upon the 4 political priorities and their goals. Here you can see the 4 strategic priorities of the strategies, creating social entrepreneurship culture, which is aimed at providing the elementary conditions for creation and promotion of social entrepreneurship culture. As here you can see the measures, and on the next slide I will explain the project which organizes all this and moderates all this, and where its activities will have impact on this aspect. The second area is capacity building and it's aimed at overcoming the shortcomings of social enterprises and in the ecosystem where the social enterprises operate. So who should enhance the capabilities of all actors in social entrepreneurship and to provide mechanisms for continued studying for all of the centers, the social enterprises, national institutions, state institutions, private companies, and all those organizations and companies who would like to become social enterprises. The third priority is market development. The aim here is to promote, to stimulate a culture for responsible spending, but also access to the markets, the public and the private markets. The public market refers to public procurement and procurement of products and services by the public sector. And in the private sector, it refers to the investment, and the responsible spending is referring to the general public. The fourth priority is the financial ecosystem. Here the idea is to develop the ecosystem through financial instruments that would offer access to financial instruments for the social enterprises that will meet their needs and capabilities. And finally, the fifth priority that is going to be added, that I have already mentioned, is building, enabling legal environment by developing and creating a legal framework that will provide a generally accepted definition, criteria, and institutional recognition of the social enterprises in the country. This slide, as you can see, everything that is in right are the areas where the project has a touching point with a certain measure. And here you can see that some of the measures the state institutions should take over as a responsibility, but we'll see how this is going to be accepted in the future. Now we reach evaluation and monitoring and evaluation. The strategy definitely envisages establishment of a national coordinative body, which will provide monitoring and evaluation of the strategy and implementation of the strategy and the action plan at annually or biannually. We'll see what will be the best approach. And of course, the action plan will be probably in 2 years. But after the monitoring and the evaluation or the assessment of that action plan, we will review what activities have been implemented or which not, and then we will develop a new one for the development of social entrepreneurship. Finally, I will explain briefly how this process was going on. Public had a consultative process, drafting a draft strategy, a draft action plan. Afterwards, through the project, the support for the social enterprises as a technical support, the ministry had a group for developing enabling strategy, and this working group was consisted of representatives from different institutions that were supposed to achieve consensus for the strategy. The Ministry of Labor and Social Policy gave the mandate for the technical support to be the secretariat of the working group, to constantly feed them with data for the finalization of the action plan, that we had presentations by social entrepreneurs, social enterprises, in order to present their development, their needs, their challenges, what's the situation like in practice, but also so that the institutions to see whether some of the recommendations by the social entrepreneurs to be sustainable, and to see what are the potential legal complications. We also had a survey with collecting the comments by the working group based on the strategy, and we had a 2-hour training for everybody, all the representatives of the working group, in order all of us to be along the same line. We had recommendations afterwards that were supposed to be incorporated in the strategy. We had interviews with different institutions. We had bilateral meetings with different institutions that provided us with detailed information, how to finalize it. And now we are literally at the point, this green square, we are finishing the strategy. I think that I'm right on time. Thank you for your attention, and I'm at your disposal for any questions you might have.
Thanks, Stefan, for the interesting presentation. And I would like to ask people for some questions, but I would like to take 2 questions from the audience right now. Please. If you want to ask something, switch on your mic or raise your hand. There is a function here in Zoom. Žarko, please, Žarko. You can use Macedonian.
So I would like to ask, in context of everything that has been said so far, I think that we've been dealing too much with researches, too much with strategies, and why don't we focus on the reality that is working in the field to create positive study cases of social enterprises, and to work on the field with the problems that the social enterprises are faced with. In the past, I can say 8 years, I have been really disappointed that we keep developing strategies, laws, and some of them are adopted, others are don't, analysis and all those things. What we need is something tangible, something realistic. We're going to have the centers for support of the social enterprises. Will these centers be, in essence, the support of the social enterprises? Are they professionally ready to help us as social enterprises? So it's good to have them as centers for support, but are they really capable to help us as social enterprises? When can we start asking for help from them?
Thanks,
are they already equipped?
Okay.
In that context.
Yeah. Okay.
In that context, whether we'll be able to get something real, effective, and not just theory. Thank you.
I'm not sure if this question is for Stefan, actually, because Žarko, I'm not sure, Barbara, maybe you want to answer to Žarko, or but just shortly, please, and then there will be a question from Dimitar, and we shall keep on going with the presentation.
Maybe I will start, Stefan, and then you. So first of all, dear Žarko, We are working here to prepare whole system. You can concentrate on the individual social enterprises, but without having such system like strategy, like public procurement, like access to finance, we can concentrate and we can support individual social enterprise, but it will not create massive critical mass to have number of social enterprises. So we were not lucky with implementation of the legislation in the previous project because it was too early. Macedonia was in the early stage, but now I think we are enough mature to have strategy, to have all these tools, and they are very practical. Żarko, you visited Poland, and do you imagine that so many social enterprises would be developed without legislation, strategy, and all these elements? You are lucky that we are in this stage, Żarko, and we count on your support. And we count on your support because without your support, we will still discuss. When the document is prepared, legislation is prepared, all of you stand for it. And then we can have money, access to public markets, networking, taxation exemption, everything. And it will be much easier, believe me. I explain it as a practitioner. It is not because, I am theoretical lady who came from the university. I came from the field to you after 32 years of experiences, and you visited these places. You know how much we achieve. Why we achieve it? Because we built this system, legal, policy, financial system, and at the same time, practical things. Regional centers, they are also in the process to be more and more aware about the concept. They are in the process, but I hope that we start to work like maybe next month. We will visit you and organize local meeting with regional support center and with social enterprises. We'll look what is the condition, what is the needs, but we know what are the needs. Financial support, business idea to be implemented locally, access to market, we know it. And without these documents, it will be really difficult to achieve. So this is not theoretical discussion, really not, really not.
Thanks, Barbara. Short question from Dimitar. Dimitar, switch on your mic.
Hello, everybody. I will try to be very brief. First of all, I would like to join the remark by Žarko that so far we keep working on theory, and we should start with practice, because unless anything is done on the field, unless we employ people, this is going to be just waste of time and effort and money. Another thing I want to share is related to after the development of the markets for social enterprises that the presenter Stefan mentioned. I think that here we have to think about adding a portion about the markets of procurement, how to achieve some kind of support for the social enterprises when it comes to procurement of raw materials, finding suppliers, etc., because this is a very important segment. The current marketing segment is focusing only on selling, but that's not all. We need to procure raw materials, etc. And in regard to investments and financing, probably some of you know about this and you have already thought about this. I just would like to mention that we should also think about some kind of fund for support of social enterprises, either under the head of the state, or to be a solidarity fund, or to have some kind of trade union banks or other financial institutions that can help. And I think everybody will have use and benefit of that. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Dimitar. Well, I guess I shall talk about the procurement. Teresa Zagorska will talk about financial instruments during the next workshop the next week. But so I don't think you expect some kind of quick answer right now. Can we then continue? And I would like to invite Barbara Sadowska.
I will tell something. I would like to once again explain. I don't understand when Dimitar and Żarko once again telling the same, that it is waste of time and that we start to have theoretical discussion. But it is not theoretical discussion, because you will have real policy document when social enterprises will be mentioned, like definition, criteria, you can apply for grants and everything. Yes.
Thank you, Dimitar and Żarko, for your questions. What's the whole point? The brief answer would be everything you say is you're quite right. However, the thing is that we cannot do that without the political and legal recognition of social enterprises. In order to be able to create that fund, it has to be established by somebody. In order to establish it, they have to have a competence, power to do that, and it won't fall from the sky. It has to originate from a law or action plan. So we have to have this document in order to do that. In regard to the Żarko's questions, we talked to the social enterprises in order to know what to incorporate in the strategy for social entrepreneurship, and the same goes for the law. And you can of course join. That's the beauty of this process. Literally, we've been working on this for years so that we would respond to the needs of everybody. Without the strategy and the legislation, we cannot build anything, because the institutional support you're referring to, it's impossible without having these documents. Shouldn't see the strategic plan only as a document, but as a vision, what to do in the next 5 years, because afterwards, with the social enterprises, we'll be able to develop further, and whether the centers are sufficiently capable to help the social enterprises. That's why we incorporated that in the strategy, capacity building of the centers, but also of you and all the new models that will appear. Social entrepreneurship has existed for 30 years, and there will be new models that will emerge, and that's normal. And that's why we need continuous learning. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you. I just want to greet Stefan and to support him with, I would like to assure Żarko and others, the people that have been elected to provide support both in the regional centers and in the Skopje center are fully responsible, because their future development will depend on the success of the social enterprises. So we are interconnected, so we cannot operate without each other. So what your proactiveness, and we will try to implement your proactiveness through all possible channels in order for you in the future would be able to develop both the enterprises, the services, also to expand and to upgrade. But all this requires that umbrella, that hat, that institutional framework that will provide us with an opportunity to expand, not only at a local and national level, but also to draw funds from Europe. That's, I just wanted to express support for this entire initiative, and to assure you that everybody present here today have great experience, huge experience, and will do their best to achieve those goals of the social enterprises and the centers. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for the questions. I want to invite Barbara to share her story about local partnerships, and also just a note to everybody, if there will be more time left at the end of the workshop, we can still have a short discussion as well. Please, Barbara. Also unmute yourself, Barbara. Okay.
to find my presentation, but I will try. As always, this is, you know, this happened very often with me. Where can I find my presentation? Okay. Here not. Here also not. Look at it. Look at it. Yes, please, yes.
Hello, everyone. Just wanted to say briefly, this discussion actually prompted me to join in, and I will not speak too long. Just from a practical perspective, we in Seed Hub, as you know, I'm manager of the Seed Hub, and I'm hired as an expert in the project. We already work with social enterprises and working on supporting social enterprises. Believe me, it's very hard when you don't have the legislation, proper legislation to support the development of enterprises, because in commercial conditions, under commercial circumstances, their market venture is just like that, is just like of the other enterprises on fighting on the free market, which imposes a big burden on the social enterprises. Believe me, this burden that the enterprises bear, along with their mission that they want to fight for, but along with all the other enterprises on the open market, disregarding thereby the needs. This is my phone, sorry for the distraction. So the market disregards the mission, the needs of these enterprises, which are different, which are more specific than the others. So I just want to say that in practice, when there are different accelerator programs, we treat them equally in the same basket, as we say, with the other enterprises, because there is no legal possibility to differentiate between the social enterprises and the others. Therefore, I'm an advocate for proper legislation that will help the bigger visibility and boosting the enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Very important voice. I also would like once again explain that without legislation, we would have only in Poland few social enterprises, and all the time these few social enterprises would be presented. Now, because the legislation was adopted, financial instruments together with legislation, and now each social enterprise which is defined in the legislation can apply for grants, startup capital, it is like grants or other instruments, very tailor-made for the needs of social enterprises. And in this way, a number of social enterprises is growing, and they really are sustainable because also they have access to local markets through public procurement. So it is really way. Yes, so this is this. And thank you very much for your voices, and would like really to ask you to think about what happens when we will not have this legal and policy document. Won't happen in Macedonia, nothing. We'll stay in this level, really. So please think about it, that it is this momentum and we can lose it, but then, I don't know, the next attempt probably will not possible. So about local partnership, Stefan just mentioned about ecosystem and different partners which are important to be aware, to be educated, to be prepared to support of social enterprises. So I would like to share, because my time is very limited today, and I would like to give space for others, but only would like to inspire you once again through Polish example, when we have very strong animation element within support centers, within the social enterprise support center, animation element. That means that we have two workers in the region which visit local municipalities, local companies, and introduce existing social enterprises or those who are newly established, like initial groups also. And sometimes these meetings are organized together with representatives of this social enterprise. So we visit local mayor, local welfare office. It is common meeting. We have few representatives of local municipality, local welfare office, sometimes from the companies, other organizations, and worker of our center with this group, initial group, which would like to set up a social enterprise. Of course, you have to know what kind of legal form. Probably here in Macedonia, it will be all legal form eligible to apply for the status, but then criteria should be fulfilled. In Poland, we have few legal forms called as a social enterprise. So we present to this local municipality these initiatives and people who come from this local municipality and people who, thanks to these social enterprises, can improve their situation, their life situation, economic situation, and local people have understand it, that this is the very important element, or they will do something what is important for the society, for the local community, or they will provide some services, and we present them. And you know, and we discussing that we as a support center can provide them all the technical support, trade them according to gaining skills needed to do services or produce products, but also we can buy them equipment, because our center in Poland also, as I mentioned yesterday, have possibility to provide grants because of legislation, and legislation describe it, that it is like 6,000 euro per one workplace, plus some provision for the salary for 6 months. So we discuss it with local partners, and they started to understand, look, this is great idea. We will have people involved in the social enterprise, instead of having them only, you know, only counting on the social benefits, we'll have them active. Also some local young people, very often they are young people together with people who have some social problems. So all together they create a social enterprise, and it looks like they will provide services. They will be taken out from the social welfare system, and it is really something what is important. And step by step, because also law on public procurement and possibility to reserve contracts by public institution for social enterprises, they can receive really some services to be done, and they can be paid. So look at this example. I will present you 3 examples from Poland, which will build through such, it is process. And all the time, I would like to tell you that the most important are relations. We have to build relations. We have to know each other. We have to understand each other, to build confidence, not to be suspicion one towards another. We have to build confidence, try to meet, to understand, to look by eyes of the people who are in the difficult situation, through eyes also of mayor, through eyes of local company. We have to understand their point of view. So look for these 3 examples. One, it is social enterprise Horizonty, which hire people who participated in the rehabilitation center, and they shape social enterprise. There are 7 persons, and they receive local municipality buy their services, and they provide, services connected to the green area. They take care of green area in the city Pniewy, and mayor and local council accepted that they do this and they are paid. They are people who really make this city beautiful, and also their dignity raise. They have feeling that they are now useful, that people have respect to them. They were people from very difficult life, with very difficult life experiences. So look, this city of Pniewy, it is city with, thousands of flowers and green area. Because of these people, they have also like integrational meetings. They talk together, they exchange their problems, they support each other. This is very important. And also they have sewing machine workshop, and they provide some gadget, but also some elements, gadgets for the city as a promotional materials of the city Pniewy. And 7 people are paid. They have the lowest salary, but before they had only social benefits, like 1/3 of lowest salary. Now they are insured, and they receive salary. So this is important. Second example, I mentioned before that also it is cooperation with private company. The same way we try to find connections. It is cooperation with Volkswagen company. I mentioned about it. Volkswagen company order us to produce and to repair metal boxes to provide parts of the cars to the factory to create cars from these parts of from the elements. And these elements are transported in these metal boxes. And also we are asked to sew uniforms for workers, work uniforms. And and we do that. We have 10 machines to sew these uniforms, and we have warehouse where plumbers are working to repair these metal boxes. You can see these blue metal boxes. And after 4 years, we were able to gather profit from this activity. This is name of the social enterprise. It is non-profit Diakonia company for employment. 28 workers, 50% are people with very difficult life experiences. Among them are homeless, addicted, disabled. 28 workers, and they were able to have profit. In Poland, social entrepreneurship is built on the rule that profit is reinvested. It is really rare situation that social enterprises are able to generate profit. Majority of them are able to cover cost of operation, but there are some which are able to generate profit. And this Diakonina company for employment generated profit, and from profit built these 8 flats. You see, this is building of these flats, and these flats looks like this. And 8 families, among them single people who are workers of the company, former homeless persons, have their small flats. It is 25 square meter, or for families 32, but they have flat and they pay rent because they earn money, so they pay rent for the flat to the Diakonina company for employment, and they can repair something, maintain all these elements. So this is cooperation with Volkswagen company. For 10 years, we cooperate with them. Barka Foundation is a founder of this company. By Barka Foundation, local municipality, and the Diakonia Church from Castor, from Germany. 3 of us, and we build this this social enterprise. And third example, very interesting example, it is restoration of the old fortification after the World War II. This is cooperation with construction company, Constructa Plus. And you know, we have partnership, Barka and many other social enterprises that in this restored fort, social enterprises will have space to sell their products and services to the inhabitants of Poznań. And unfortunately, I don't have presentation because today in Poland is Christmas, is national holiday. And you know, lady who is representative of this construction companies for the holiday, so she couldn't send me the presentation, but I will show you only 2 minutes movie showing this plan for reconstruction of this fort. And this is done with support of private company, social enterprises, and some regional money given by the regional governance to support this idea. Because of legislation, because there is legislation and regional authority can really support such initiatives. So now, Mindaugus, please show this short movie about fort, which we'll use for regeneration, for the
okay.
Promotion of social.
Yes, can you stop sharing the screen?
Okay.
Okay. Just a second. Just a second.
This is social fort. We call it social fort, fort społeczny.
Do you see the video? Yes.
There are inside, there are places for the cinema, for the restaurant, for the meeting for elderly people, for the rehabilitation services, for the services provided by the disabled people, people with Down syndrome, people who also this park will be given to take care of this car will be given to the social cooperatives, which is involving providing some, you know, services in the green areas. So all this concept is built on base of the ruin fort, and it is not yet, it is project only. It will look like this, but this is ongoing process. We are in the beginning, but it is local partnership with private company and social enterprises. So I think that it also can inspire, and would like to tell you that this company, Constructa Plus, was presented during the company doing good forum, which was international conference organized by the public and with other institutions, among them GIS and Ministry of Labor and Social Policy. And this project was presented as a really very inspiring project, because each city, each country has such ruined buildings, and after regeneration, we can use it for these purposes. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. I would like to invite you to ask 2 questions to Barbara. Who would like to ask something from Barbara? Okay, if nobody is asking the questions, I would like to invite Alexandra Boeva from the Red Cross to share her experience about, making Red Cross bigger, better, and faster.
Barbara, because nobody had any questions, actually, I just wanted to say that it's truly an honor and pleasure for having had the opportunity to witness some of the good examples that you just elicited now from Poland that were truly very inspiring to me personally. Some were very motivational and gave us an inspiration about the path in which we need to develop ourselves in the future. So let me start the presentation now. I hope you can all see the presentation. My name is Alexandra Boeva. I'm a coordinator of the social enterprises within the Red Cross of the city of Skopje, but also part of the expert team on board this Eptisa project. Today, I'm going to focus more on developing local partnerships and cooperation with the local community and with the private enterprises or companies. So what I wanted to point out too, and even all the speakers before me, including Eptisa yesterday, spoke about the importance of cooperation of social enterprises with the local government, local self-government, and also with the private sector in the community. To me personally, cooperation with the local government is a key element for the development of social economy, because very often the social enterprises in their initial stage are focused on resolving certain local problems, which does not mean that further on in the path of their development, they will not solve any broader regional or even national problem. But as it turns out, almost 90% of the social enterprises act locally, tackle challenges existing in the local community. But with the proper support between the local self-government and the social enterprises, we will truly have a win-win situation for both sides. To any problem which is troubling the community. To my opinion, there are different ways of how to ensure this social impact. Stefan mentioned development of new social services, personal assistance, helping the elderly in their home, environmental protection, recycling, reusing waste, work integration of the marginalized people. There are many enterprises targeting precisely this important element. So to my mind personally, it is of essential importance, I have to say. And Nikita mentioned this already with regards to the social economy. According to the statistics, 10% of the EU companies are part of the social economy. And about 6% of employment at the EU level, in fact, takes place at the level of social enterprises. The number is actually higher than this because this is all the data. However, another thing worth mentioning is that the pandemic also influenced the development of social enterprises and the traditional classical businesses. However, within the entire process, social enterprises, and Nikita mentioned this yesterday, truly proved themselves to be more resilient in the time of crisis. Why? Because of the solidarity that prevails. There is it has a social mission, and the support comes more for the social enterprises in these difficult times compared to those who are only profit driven. So as a EU candidate country, I truly believe that social enterprises will be important stakeholders in the work integration processes, and in order for them to achieve this, cooperation with the local government is very important.
What I can focus on are the good practices of the social enterprises within the Red Cross of the city of Skopje, and the collaboration we have had with the local community or a private company in each of them. And at the moment, we have 4 social enterprises that operate within the city Red Skopje of Skopje, like the second-hand shop for clothes, Kopče, Nega Center, the help service for elderly and frail people, Solferino, training and education center, and the emergency button service, which at the moment is in a phase of development. Kopče is a social enterprise that has been functioning from 2012, and it's a place where anybody can donate or buy secondhand clothes, or just to get it free of charge. It was developed as a result of many years of operation of the Red Cross in the fields of donation and distribution of clothes, and by opening a social enterprise, basically we enabled a more efficient system of distribution of clothes to the to people at risk, and we focused on the working integration of the vulnerable citizens by focusing of single parents. And since 2012, we've had 4 people who are single parents who work within this social enterprise. But since 2020, we have plus 1 person who is both a single parent and an asylum seeker in Macedonia, and he is included in the process of work integration within this enterprise. In regard to the experiences we've had with this social enterprise and the collaboration with external supporters, I have to mention that the social enterprise itself was open with the support of private companies. At the time, we were supported by Alpha Bank and Sava insurance companies, who helped us with the space and renovating the space, and for the first couple of months of the operation of the social enterprise. And among other things, we managed to we received support from experts, with expert support for the way the enterprise operated. So it's a non-financial support, but we as a Red Cross, we will always focus on the social mission, and we as a team, we didn't know much about the accounting and the economic operation of an enterprise like this. Furthermore, in regard to the collaboration with the local community, 2019, we started cooperation with the city of Skopje, and the cooperation was focused on increasing the activities within the social enterprise, that is introducing a workshop on sewing and recruiting people at risk to be integrated in the process. And the collaboration with the city of Skopje continued next year in order to open a new shop, Kopče, focusing on children. But unfortunately, the pandemic started at that time, and we postponed the opening of this shop, and hopefully by the end of this year it's going to be done. This entire process has been additionally supported by the municipality of Karposh and municipality of Gazibabel with their initiatives for collecting clothes and donations. And since recently, we have a self-initiative demand for a new shop to be opened in the municipality of Aerodrome. It was on their initiative. It's something new. We're in preliminary negotiations whether we're going to do it or not. Another thing that I'm very proud of when it comes to cooperation, the cooperation with the private company at USIA, which started a couple of months ago, and basically the remainings of the textile that reach a couple of tons per month no longer end up at the landfill Drizla, but the remains of the textile are used as alternative fuel, and the protection of environment is one of our top priorities in our work. So it was a long, difficult process, but finally it paid off. What I would basically like to emphasize in the way the collaboration was collaboration developed both with the municipalities and the companies is that at the very beginning we were the ones that were the team which really tried to get in touch and to develop collaboration with private companies, other civil society organizations, individuals, representatives of the local administration. And only after a couple of years, now we are faced with a different situation. We are really the ones who approach others for collaboration, but now we are approached for collaboration, which is something that I'm really proud of, because in such a short time, we managed to turn things around, and the local authorities have realized that social enterprises could be excellent partners in implementing, in achieving certain local goals. The next social enterprise is Megacenter, the service for providing homes help service to elderly and frail people done by certified caretakers. Services provided at home. It officially started operating in 2020, in the same year as Skopje. So this is its third year of operation. Its basic activities is providing care at home, but also training for certifying caregivers. In regard to the collaboration with private companies, because of the nature of the service itself, which is being offered, there hasn't been either need or there hasn't been a need to cooperate with the private company, with the exception of providing trainings for caregivers for private homes for elderly. But I can say about the local authorities, we've been very pleased that in 2020, last year, we established cooperation with the municipality of Karposh for the development and implementation of the social service of providing help at home, a project supported by the World Bank and the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy. We are still in the phase of preparing the service, and hopefully starting from July, we'll be service providers of for the state, for the municipality when offering this service. That's where we really see the sustainability of this social enterprise, because until now, unlike the Skopje enterprise, this Megacenter hasn't succeeded to ensure sustainability, because we tried our prices to be really low and accessible in order to provide help to those who need it. And we managed to continue providing the support with the help of grants. I don't want to give the impression that everything is running smooth with no problems. That's not true. When we try to establish support, to have a support by the municipalities for this service, I tried to organize meetings with all the mayors in the city of Skopje, and truth to be told, I didn't get a positive feedback from all the municipalities. Many of the out of all the municipalities, only in Karpoš we have this service provided. So things are not always moving smoothly, but hopefully with these positive practices of functioning, the local self-government hopefully will see that we can be serious partners as social enterprises offering this kind of services. Solferino is another social enterprise, which at the moment when it was established, the social entrepreneurship concept wasn't really known because it's been operating for about 20 years. But I wouldn't take too much time speaking about it because it's been self-sustainable for a long period without cooperating with the local self-government or private companies. They have simply achieved sustainability on their own over the years during the pandemic. We really were faced with huge challenges, but I really hope that soon enough we'll start going back to some kind of normality. The last social enterprise is something new that we are working on, and that's Itnokupče. This is 24/7 monitoring service for elderly people at their homes to intervene during urgent situations. We are developing it now. We have the support from the Ministry of Labour and Social Policy by having a joint project that we implement, but I cannot share nothing at the moment about in regard to potential collaboration with the private sector or the municipalities. But the vision is, in order for this service to operate, it's unavoidable to have this kind of collaboration. So I think that in the interest of time, I should stop here. This is everything I had to share at this moment. I hope that this will help you as a practical example. And since it's a great pleasure when regional centers are being opened, I'm at your disposal to answer any questions you might have, not only today, but in the future as well. Thank you.
Okay, let's have one question from the audience to Alexandra. And Alexandra, thanks a lot for your presentation as well. Yes, please, Mimosa. Unmute yourself. Okay.
Alexandra, I saw on the presentation, video presentation, that Solferino is an enterprise located in Struga and Ohrid. Could you please tell us a little bit more what's its activities, what's happening there? No problem. It's a training center of the Red Cross of the city of Skopje, located in Struga along the Ohrid Lake. We use it for the needs of our volunteers, experts, collaborators, but it's open as a hotel for commercial use. So at the moment when there are no workshops on or working groups doing training there, the citizens can, it is used for commercial purposes. Basically, you can book a room there. So we employ their people at social risk. What's important to share in regard to the redistribution of profits, everything that the entire profit at the end of the year, if there is any profit, it goes to the program activities of the Red Cross of the city of Skopje, usually to the homeless center, because they always lack funds. I hope I managed to provide you the information you needed.